Hello, everyone. It's National Women's Day, and we're here to discuss women leadership and missed opportunities. Our first speaker today is Padma Shri Dr. Bhavna Somaya. She's an author, columnist, and historian. She has published 18 books and is one of India's greatest film critics and film writers. As one of the longest running editors of Screen magazine, she has deep insights on running chaotic newsrooms. We are so happy to have you here today. Thank you, Bhavna ji.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Shreya next. Shreya is a talent development professional and has spent 9 years as the founder of Your Image and I, working as an executive coach and corporate image consultant to professionals across industries. She's also a YouTuber. Shreya shares tips on everyday psychology at work and building a powerful personality. Welcome, Shreya.
Thank you.
Next, we have Monica. Monica Banerjee loves being introduced as a mother of two beautiful girls. She's a successful growth and marketing professional with 10 plus years of work experience. She works closely with startups in their 0 to 1 journey and has helped grow the teams at Zomato, Cred, and most recently Zepto. Thanks, Monica, for taking the time out as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
So quite a powerful house of women here today. I'm Sayukta. I'm going to moderate the session. I'm the content head at Nova Benefits, a healthcare and wellness platform centered on building happier and healthier workplaces for everybody. So in line with the entire concept of building happier and healthier workplaces, I want to quickly open up with Shreya. Shreya, what are your first thoughts that come to your mind while being a female leader at work in 2023?
My first thought is that I'm fortunate to be a part of being a woman executive, being a woman professional in times of today. I just feel very fortunate because there's, I know with all that, the progress we've made, slow or whatever, but this is a great time to be in the mainframe where there are more opportunities, where at least people are beginning to speak about the presence of women, representation across hierarchies and levels. I also feel that there's a mindset shift that women has had, like there's a paradigm shift women have had in the last decade where we're just a lot more aware, we're a little more informed, we've just somehow gathered that strength and confidence to start asking, for what we want. And on the other side, we're also hearing, we're getting a listen, like a patient listening to what our desires are at work. So I think I'm fortunate to be in a place at this time.
That's great to know. Monica, as a working mom, there are several different experiences that you've had in the workplace. So while you may also feel the same as Shreya, there are also certain instances that you've been put forth just because you've been like a working mother in a leadership position. How do you feel about being a woman, an executive woman in 2023?
To be very honest, I've had very varying experiences. So I think it differs from organization to organization, to be very honest. Culture flows top down. That's what I believe, at least, right? So when you have people in a leadership position that understand, value, and have the sort of same thoughts that you would, I think it just makes things easier, right? So I've been part of an organization where when I came back from my first pregnancy and I had my first child, I had a beautiful and absolutely smooth experience, settling back into work, because the leadership of that particular organization was so understanding, welcoming, and empathetic, right? I think that would be like the perfect word. Whereas I've had a totally different or opposite experience the second time around. So to be very honest, it's just varying experiences. So I can't say that it has been great or it's not been great, because I think it just differs from organization to organization.
Completely agree with your point of how culture and just company ethics flows top down. It makes such a huge difference there. I'd like to ask both Bhavna ji and Shreya. Bhavna ji, we can start with you. When Monica's talking about these experiences and how culture flows top down. You're someone who's been at that leadership position for the last, say, 2 decades, and you've worked with countless women across age groups. What do you have to say about building these empathetic organizations that would support working women in leadership roles?
So first, I would like to say, Sayukta, you are a good journalist because you are sharp and observant to make out that I was getting affected by the two speakers who are younger than me, have less experience, and I am reflecting about what they're speaking, and I'm glad to answer on that. I agree that culture flows from top to down, but we as journalists have always been in the editorial department, and though the culture of the management affects us, and yet we have our own space and our own ways of doing things. As an editor, as a woman editor, I have all the time had girls who are getting engaged, who are getting in and out of relationships, who are getting married, and who get pregnant. I make sure to make stools for them as footrest. And I always tell them that go home 1 hour early to beat the traffic time because you're traveling by public transport. And I get very worried. And these girls are somebody who have traveled by the public transport and have worked till the last day, till they have landed in the hospital. It's always a husband ringing me up and saying it was a smooth delivery. So I think the bonding time is the lunch time. So even if I'm not eating lunch and even if I'm not carrying food from home, I sit with them, and that's the time I am not strict with them and I'm listening to them and their stories. And that's when you get the feel of their routine, their relationships. And I want to be a facilitator. And I feel my editor, who was a man, there's only one editor I worked with. And after that, I became an editor. He could always tell from the way I wrote my article that month that something was not right at home or in my own heart. And today, I can always sense when my writers are in some trouble. I call them into the room and I say, is something troubling you? Because the focus is not showing in your writing. So I think the older I got, the more organizations I worked, I became a more compassionate editor. Earlier, I was very strict and very rigid, but I feel work goes on. Life doesn't stop. So you must gather as much love and compassion around you because that's what's going to make you enriched.
Yeah. And Bhavnaji, at the core of everything that you're saying is empathy. It's essentially putting yourself in the shoes of a junior colleague or anybody in the workplace and understanding that they may probably require more comfort. I loved the part that you mentioned about public transport. Like just knowing that that person takes like public transport and probably does not enjoy the same luxuries
As
as
I
yours.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shreya, any thoughts on this from a very corporate lens?
Yes,
From
I mean, what I'm also hearing from Bhavna ji is so much of mindfulness in the leadership roles and responsibilities that she owns, and that's exactly the fulcrum of how leaders should present themselves to their people. But yes, um, from a corporate lens, really to back up Dr. Bhavna's point and add to that, that um, building a culture where we have more nuanced, open, compassionate conversations, having conversations for performance, having very nice, mindful, thought through conversations for performance for women, I think has to be a part of every organization's culture, where leaders understand the importance of knowing where the employee, actually whether men or women, but we're speaking of women, where what is the talent that she brings to the table, and ensuring that you have these conversations early on when she joins in, understanding what her aspirations are, what she brings to the table, even if we're not able to fulfill those right in the beginning, but at least being mindful and knowing that this is what she brings to the table, and creating a succession plan or a pathway where she can eventually start exhibiting those skills and creating more holistic roles for women. It also goes on having very clear, whether we call them OKRs, ensuring that women are absolutely sure of what is the expectation from the role, having neatly laid down objective key responsibilities, enabling women to start measuring their OKRs early on and having those conversations and not waiting till the end of a year where you're having those conversations around appraisal or performance, etc. But preparing your team, preparing your women from every quarter before you land into that conversation of performance and appraisal. So these are some of the things. It doesn't happen overnight. It has to be a part of the culture. It has to be asking her, what is it that you bring to the table? Where is it that you want to go with your skills? And how can we as an organization help you bridge that gap? Uh, I just want to feel heard. I just want to feel that I'm acknowledged. I just want to feel that people understand that I'm a responsible working professional. And I will just add one more thing here, Sanita, that ensuring that you look at women as strategic partners. And I'm saying that because I also work as a mentor and executive coach to many, many women, also men, but women have had lately come to me talking about serious concerns on how they are not looked upon as strategic partners or thought partners into meeting rooms, even when they have a lot to say. So when, as a woman, I'm not enabled, there's very little. Not all of us are very forthright, and not all of us have that confidence and courage to just keep speaking all the time, without getting that nudge and the right push. So it's a genuine request from leaders and organizations to start looking at your women as strategic partners.
Absolutely. I think yes, it comes down to culture, but also the point you made about leaders looking at women as strategic partners and not essentially just another employee.
Yes.
Um, we're discussing culture a lot, but something very important here is that if you look at statistics and studies from the last 2 decades, and this is globally, not necessarily only in India, but it's also a trend we see in India, where women in executive and leadership positions have actually dwindled in numbers. So in 2011, where we had 24% of women holding positions as senior vice president, directors, senior managers, now, post pandemic, it's only 19% women doing the same. So, if so many companies are addressing culture, if so many companies are rewiring how they look at women, what's really going wrong? Like, what really has changed that women are constantly jumping jobs at greater speed than men and looking for something better? I'd like to open this up. I mean, Monica, if you have something to say on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down to a couple of things, right? One is sensitization. It's very important that it's not just one leader that understands or empathizes with what their teammate is going through, but I think sensitization of the entire team or organization, etc., of people who are working in a space where, in my particular example, right, you have a woman who has 2 children or who has just come back from maternity leave. Something as small as asking her, hey, how was your holiday? Right? Maternity leave isn't a holiday. So something as small as that affects a woman in a workplace, right? And the minute you're treated as if you're different, or you can't handle as much responsibility at work because you have responsibility at home, is a very bad space to be in, right? It's a choice to have children, right? It's a woman's choice to have children, and unfortunately or fortunately, we're the only who can amongst the two genders. So you shouldn't be holding that against me. You should be encouraging women to come back to work. You should be creating holistic, happier spaces for women to come back into, and kind of facilitating them to grow in those organizations or to grow in those spaces with the responsibilities that they have at home, right? These days, you carry work back home all the time because of laptops, because of laptops or smartphones, etc. So you're working 24/7 irrespective. So something as small as, like Bhavna ji said, right? You allow maybe a mother or a pregnant woman to leave home or leave office for home maybe an hour early. It doesn't really change much, because when we go back home also, we are working. So understanding that, something as small as that could maybe make my life a little bit simpler and help me kind of concentrate or manage both my responsibilities equally well, is something that only comes down from people, like I said in the beginning itself, who have one, empathy, and two, who have a basic understanding of the fact, we're trying our best, but we can only do so much.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel differently because I think just in the way a woman's hormones change and she feels differently at 20, then at 30, then at 40, 50, and at 60. You evolve, you feel differently, your perspective changes, your worldview changes. Similarly, as a working woman, your worldview changes. I feel I don't expect my colleagues or my senior or the one who hired me to ever ask me, how was my holiday? It's my life. I deal with it. You don't ask me. I don't ask you. I'm fine with it. I go back home. You go back home. I think women are not probably statistically in the high positions that you're saying is because it's their choice. They want to be in a workplace, but they don't want so much responsibility that it disturbs their domesticity, their everyday functioning. They're looking at facility of travel. They're looking at facility to balance their home and their careers. They want to go on holiday with husband and friends. So it's so much nicer to not have the burden of a top position, yet it's a so I think the COVID and the long spell has made us pause and ponder that what do we really want? And it's all about choices. And they're making the choices, and it's not just them, us at workplace. It's even my cook and my maid who looks after me. I remember when she came back from COVID, she said, "Didi, मैं Saturday, Sunday काम नहीं करूँगी. I want to be with the family." We are negotiating, all of us are negotiating, and we have now gotten over that we are in competition with men in executive level. I'm fine as long as I have some stimulation outside my home, and I'm back to my own security and my pillow and my husband or my child or my mother. I'm happy. I really feel women, whether they are in power or not in power, are more contained, more content, more confident. I look at it extremely positively.
But it's an interesting point, I think, Dr. Bhavna has made, which is about the choices that people make. It's not women making more choices than men, but um, I also feel that
Yeah, leadership is a full-time role.
yes.
Then,
So
yeah.
it's not. I know. So to Dr. Bhavna's point also, I don't know if many of us are ready or want to take up a holistic responsibility of being a leader, which involves being a people leader. And again, people leader takes most of our times. Where we are just connecting with people and ensuring work is getting done. I mean, there is so much one can talk about upskilling and uh, having that foresight to know when is the right time to upskill. But I'll keep that aside since we've spoken about it. But I also feel that we are in a highly visual world. We are very visually oriented anyway as human beings. As humans. Our text and auditory skills somehow take a backseat, but what we see is what we believe, and that's how the world is. So I feel that whatever skills we bring to the table as women, if we can also nurture our skill to talk about them, to exhibit them, it's very important. And here I'm specifically talking about executive presence that is needed for women more than any. If there was any time in this world where we needed executive presence for women, this is the time where we speak up and have the assertiveness as a skill to speak what is rightfully mine and ask for what is rightfully mine, and to be able to say that without burning bridges. Unfortunately, it's always either aggression or just being very amiable. There's a very nice path called assertiveness, and if women know that skill, this can take us a very long way. We can negotiate confidently and comfortably. We can speak in meetings and be very contributive in every conversation that we have. So I would always say that is one skill. The other skill I feel is that of body language, which is so underrated. I don't know if we why don't we talk enough about that presence that we bring to the table in terms of, confidence in our presence. Why can't we territorial space, things like why can't we take a little more territorial space and sit the way we feel very comfortable, and take our rightful space in meeting rooms and boardrooms, having our voice slightly stronger than what it is, bringing the, as they say, the chest voice, bring out that chest voice. All of us have all those things. So why can't we do those kind of things? Why we don't have to have a flat voice when we speak, we don't have to have a soft voice all the time. That's not the place when we're trying to ask for something or bring a point to the table. So why using all these bodily resources that are given to us in terms of a voice, in terms of a body language, in terms of the choice of words, I think will take us a long way in ensuring that we don't have to keep switching jobs to get a senior role, and where we are, we can still find a way around.
I have two very insightful takeaways from what you all have said, right? Like one of the things that you said, Shreya, was that we need to kind of speak up, or we need to be assertive, etc. But from experience or from people that I've seen as well, right? There are a lot of times where you could be assertive, or you could be putting your point across, but you will come across situations more often than not where the person in the front doesn't understand it, right? Which is what brings me back again to what I said. It's just very important that we build organizations, or that we nurture organizations that are a little bit more sensitized, that understand that it's okay to ask for what you want. It's okay to say that I'm not okay with this, right? I think we a lot of us work in organizations where the culture is saying yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, right? And because we see that from our colleagues or around us, we believe that that's the way to go. Otherwise, you're not going to, get anywhere. You're not going to grow in your career. And it has happened also that a lot of times where you will assert yourself, and you will see that you've kind of, because of that assertive behavior, you have kind of been shunned aside because everybody else comes from the yes sir culture or background.
Yes.
Right? So it's also very important to understand who you're speaking to. It's very important to understand who you're being assertive in front of as well, whether the person in the front is going to absorb and understand why you're saying what you're saying. It's not always going to work in every situation. There are situations where, whether you like it or not, if you do want to progress in your career, you have to just say yes sir and move on with it. And it's a sad reality, but it is the reality of how things are right now. And I've faced this multiple times, right? Coming back as a working mom, if you're being told that, hey, you need to be available for this meeting at, say, 8:30 at night. And if I say, I'm really sorry, 8:30 at night is absolutely not possible. It is a time where, I have to be available for things at home. This is the problem working with moms. That's the sort of response that you get flat out on your face. And it's very sad, because my point is 8:30 at night, if I'm starting work at 9 in the morning, is irrespective, not an okay time to be at work, right? So whether I'm a mom or not a mom, if I'm saying no to attending a meeting at 8:30, how has that got to do anything with me being a woman or a mom or having responsibilities at home? It's just me drawing boundaries. But people always view you as a woman first, as a mother first, and then as a working professional. And that is the sad truth or reality of what we've been dealing with in workspaces.
Sayukta, I'm listening to these young girls. I am understanding what they're saying. But I'm from a different generation, so I think we never went so deep into analyzing the way they are talking, like body language. I don't think I know my body language, or I don't think I look inward the way they do. I am not critical of it. I am enlightened by it. I feel I cannot be apologetic about being a woman. I cannot be apologetic about being either attractive or soft spoken. I remember my editor once telling me, it was always thrown at me that you're too sensitive. It was almost thrown as an accusation. I had become sensitive about being sensitive and didn't know how to overcome it. He said, I can hear your glass bangles in your writing. I want you to be more, I think, generic or more maybe masculine. I don't know. He never framed his words correctly. But I also remember a conversation with a TV anchor, a TV journalist at that time, a new channel that had come up. And she told me something that I've never forgotten. She said, Bhavna, I was doing a story on the road with my camera crew, and it was a very important story where we had just got a breakthrough. You know, some notorious guy, something, she had to interview that guy on the road, and there was a lot of riots happening. And she said, just as I was about to take my mic space, my cameraman said, watch out, look at your back. So she had soiled her kurta because in all this commotion, when she got her cycle, she didn't know. She said, I had two choices: to get embarrassed, hail a cab and get into it, or I had worked so hard for the story to, in any case, people have seen my soiled kurta, just finish saying what I had to say into the mic. I'm getting goosebumps. And then, so she said, I said it. Everybody had watched my kurta. The cameraman hailed a cab for me after the story was over, and I came home. I'm extremely proud of her. If I'm a woman and I have biological limitations or assets, I cannot be apologetic about it. If I have a certain, to use her word, body language when I enter, where I'm pulling my sari or sitting a little demure and speaking a little softly, it doesn't mean I'm weak. It doesn't mean you can patronize me. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you. And it certainly doesn't mean I'm going to say, yes, sir. I think my generation stayed in a job for a decade. My track record is that I've spent a decade everywhere. People laugh at it today, but my father spent 50 years in one job, Bamashal. So that's the inspiration, or that's the teaching we have got. I'm 60 plus, these kids are maybe 30 plus. So I don't know. Things are the same and things are different and things are changing. And that's how it's supposed to be.
Bhavnaji, something Monica mentioned, which I want to ask you. She said very interestingly, like as a woman in a certain executive position, you're asserting yourself correctly. You're saying the right thing. So she's exactly saying what you're saying. Like, you're not apologetic. You are who you are. You're saying the right thing.
Sure.
But how do you deal with a situation when you're asserting yourself, you're doing things correctly, and you're proud of yourself, but you're unfortunately still having to face things that probably men in the workplace don't have to? Or I wouldn't like to use the term men here, that probably others in the organization don't have to. How do you deal with someone, with a leader who doesn't take your assertiveness well?
You know, I've never faced it, so I don't know. I have never had any problems anywhere. When I had a problem, I left.
I'm sure you're underplaying it.
Huh.
But I also feel like, I mean, you focused on the positive is how I'm looking at this.
So if you give me specific example, are you talking about your boss or a male colleague making overtures at you or hitting onto you?
Because this was quite a negative comment that your editor made to you, that I can hear your glass bangles in your writing.
I think it was not negative. It was a very sexist remark.
Yes.
And I don't think at that point, I'm talking about the 80s, these things were sensitized, highlighted. So he thought he was paying me a compliment. And I didn't know whether it was a compliment or I frankly didn't know at that time. But when I look back, I don't take it as a compliment, definitely. So besides this, most of the time there were women in the office. The men were in minority in the job I did as a film journalist. So I cannot have a comparison broad. I am not trying to push it under the carpet. If you ask me very categoric, specific questions, I'll answer.
No, very.
I never felt I was underpaid, undervalued than a male colleague ever. I never felt at home that my parents had a different scale for the brothers or the sisters. We did everything the brothers did. And I thought the world was like that. I have consciously noticed getting into an elevator in the early 80s when it's full of men and I'm the only woman in the elevator. I have noticed traveling by a double-decker bus in the early 80s and noticed that I was the only woman traveling in that work time, either to and fro. So these are things that were my observations, but I never felt scared or that something was going to happen to me. These fears were not there in the olden days.
Bhavna ji, like I can give you some specific examples, right? Which might help understand what I was trying to say. For example, you walk into a meeting room. You're one of the only women in those meeting rooms. And everybody's being, after the meeting is done, everybody's being complimented or being said, you know, hey, your point was great and what you said was great. But you're being told, did you get a haircut? You know, something as small as that, it affects you. It's as if you were listening to what I was saying. But you were more consumed by the way I was looking, right? Something as small as that. Or situations where you walk into an interview where my husband was and I were looking for a job at the same time. He comes back home and tells me, you know, they asked me about my skill set. They asked me about how I built this in my previous organization, where I failed, where did I learn faster, etc. And I was asked, oh, you just got married? Oh, you just had a child? Are you planning to have another child anytime soon? These are questions, legit questions that I have faced in interviews. And it's very demeaning. It's very demoralizing when you come back and you realize that the exact same interview or situation rather, that you know, your male counterpart or somebody else that you know has been through has had a completely opposite experience, has been asked completely separate things. But you have been asked, do you have help at home? Do you have somebody to look after your children when you come to work? Have you made arrangements if in case we have late meetings? Because, you know, we work till very late on days, you know, when it's required. So what will you do with your children at that point in time?
Really?
These are questions that I have been asked, and these are questions that I have been judged on, whether I'm a right fit to take on that particular role or not. That is the space that, you know, I'm coming from.
No, so all the other things that you said, I completely agree with. They have no business to ask you this. But when they ask you, they don't react to your points in the meeting and they say, do you have you had a haircut? It means you are a threat.
Clearly.
They don't want to comment on what was your contents. So he is trying to pacify himself because he's visibly challenged by you.
I would love to take it in that scenario.
Next time anybody says that, you call me up.
Done.
See, it's also very important to understand that, unfortunately, you know, women in leadership roles are a minority in India. I don't even want to go global. So, historically, if you see any minority group or will always get special treatment, will always be spoken about. These minority groups will get stronger together. There's always going to be a gap, a chasm, a divide between those who exist versus those who are still in the minority. That's fundamentally how minorities kind of work. So there is very little we can we will be able to change. This cannot change overnight. There's a whole society that has to play a role in ensuring that, including women, whether they are okay to be minority in leadership roles, or are they okay to break that chain. There is so much divide in how we all think about leadership roles, how much commitment we want to make into our job roles, how aspirational we are in terms of, achieving more, like upskilling ourselves, etc. So we are still in a very great divide in that respect. So the best we can do while we still stay minority is to ensure that we talk about what is it that we bring to the table, and that minority treatment is going to come our way, and either we lose our mind or move out of it, or we say that you've seen this in the past, don't worry, you can be okay with me, you can treat me as a leader. So the more we keep talking about it, that it's okay, you just can treat me as a leader and you don't have to worry about any of the other things here with me. So as long as every woman can speak about herself, and then we together go in chorus about building our leadership roles, I think we're in a good space. We can't change this overnight, and we have to accept this fact. There has to be radical acceptance that it's going to be to each their own journey. And every time I also hear those kind of questions or sentences or statements that, Monica, you've heard, which have come in different ways, my ways also, it's been my responsibility. I always feel it's my responsibility to talk about what I bring to the table. How am I being positioned as a leader? It's my responsibility to position myself. And I can only do that once I'm very self-aware. So this is to all of us women to start really being extremely self-aware, being self-reflective, and keep checking that every 3 to 6 months as to what is it that I bring to the table. How can I get better at that? And once I do that, it's a good journey for me to traverse.
Sayukta, what I feel is that yes, we are women, but we are also individuals. And Aparna Sen said something wonderful to me. She said, whenever at a festival there is a special section of retrospective or something that is organized, they say women directors. Do we say women doctors? Do we say women writers? We do say, unfortunately. But I feel, she says, I'm a director. Why am I being classified as a women director?
Yes.
So that is the guideline for us. We should stop playing the woman card. We should stop feeling that we are the minority. We should just, even if there are observations, then you accept it and go ahead with it. There is no need to dwell on it, in my opinion.
Yes.
The day I feel as an individual, people treat me as an individual. And this individual has her body and her voice and her behavior qualifications, just in the way he has. God made man and women different so that life becomes interesting. We are not at war with each other.
Correct.
But Monica has a point about all that she said. They have no business to ask her, do you have help at home, and do you have this, and are you planning your second baby? But at the same time, Monica, if you look at it from, say, suppose your husband has a company and he's employing a just recently married girl, I don't think it is such an unfair question that are you planning to have a second baby, because the company is investing a lot in you. They want to give you a powerful position. They want to know what's on your mind and what's on your card. Look at Alia Bhatt. Alia Bhatt got married, and then she was working on that Hollywood film. She informed them that she's pregnant. Okay. And they took it as a good omen. So I feel, look at the actresses. They're all getting married. They're all having babies. And they're all getting into shape. And nobody is, nothing is offense. Nothing is an interruption. And
Yeah,
they're doing it at their pace that I want so much time to get over it.
Yep.
Anushka, prime example.
Absolutely. A very quick point I want to make. I remember when I was expecting my firstborn, at that time, I was again an independent consultant. I got an assignment to train folks in Mauritius. And I was very scared to speak about my pregnancy. I was 3 months pregnant at that time. Finally, when I did land in Mauritius to train, I was 5 months pregnant. But so how I dealt with it was that I took those 2 full-day training workshops for all the folks that I had to. And it's only at the end of it and fortunately, it went very, very well. And the agent who I was working with, I told him much later after that, because he was planning trainings in the next few months as well. So I said, okay, I'm expecting my baby and I'm 5 months. They just, first of all, they couldn't believe. They had no idea, that, I was expecting. And I was so scared to speak about it. But the only thing I received was a lot of respect and regard and more work assignments from them following next 3 months. And it's only when I was 7.5 months is when I told them I won't be able to travel for the next 4 months. And once I did deliver my firstborn, I went again. And then I was expecting my secondborn and I went again. So I think sometimes it's also about the trust that I build into people to receive that kind of trust and respect that I get back from them. So it's always a two-way street.
Yes,
And Monica, I want to tell one more example, again from Sharmila Tagore, because all these lessons come always from a married woman and a mother. She said when she had Sev, she said it was a big decision because she came back and then she started shooting for Aradhana. Okay. And she said, it's that tough decision where you have to take about being separated from your child and setting a routine and making sure that either your mother or your mother-in-law, whom you trust the most, are around. She said it's very tough and all women die 1,000 deaths at that time. But if you are able to do it at that time, then you have a career all over through your life. But that time when you become weak and you become emotional and you start giving excuses and explanations for yourself, you are never able to catch up.
absolutely.
I've not had a baby, so I don't know.
No, but Bhavnaji, exactly what you and Shreya said, right? The entire point is that you want to be looked at as an individual, not as a woman. So if I'm a parent, my husband is an equal parent.
Yeah, but he's
right?
looked at as an individual.
Correct. And that's exactly what you want to be viewed as in a workplace. I don't want to be viewed as, oh, just because you have children, you have a limitation. My husband also has children. He is also a parent. If I am a parent, he is also a parent. That is my only point. And also, like you said, right? People who came back to work, for example, when you went to Mauritius, or when, when Alia Bhatt told them that she was pregnant, they took it as a good sign or as a good omen, or people were very, very understanding and receptive. That is exactly what builds conducive work environments. That is exactly what encourages a woman to feel like, okay, fine, this is just it's a part of my life. It's not my whole life.
Yes.
And that is what you want to feel in workspaces. Unfortunately, you still do come across situations where that is not the case. And that is what we need to be kind of working to build or to better. Right? When I announced my pregnancy, my second pregnancy, I had just started working at this particular organization. It had just been around 2.5, 3 months. So I was very nervous because I was worried because a lot of corporates do have policies that clearly state that you cannot be pregnant if you have not, or you cannot get pregnant within the first 6 months of working in an organization.
My God.
Yes.
How do you control fertility?
Exactly.
How can I control? If I'm pregnant, I want to have the baby.
Sadly, Bhavnaji, that's how corporates base their policies these days. And it's the sad truth. But it is what it is, right? It's there. And it's given to you in writing when you join an organization. So I was very scared to tell my organization, but I said, you know what, I'm going to be unapologetic. I had been trying to have a second child for quite some time. I had medical complications before, etc. So I'm very happy that this has happened to me. I'm not going to be sad about it. And I'm not going to be apologetic about it. So I did go and I told my organization. And luckily, there were a part or a group of people who were overjoyed and very supportive. And said, call me for whatever you need. This is our health insurance guy. He'll lead you to the right doctors and he'll help you to understand cashless policies, etc., etc. But then you also do come across in the same organization people who will be like, oh my God, now she's going to go on a holiday of 6 months. And, she's not going to be able to travel and she's not going to be able to do work. I traveled even when I was 38 weeks pregnant for an offsite, right? For a marketing offsite that we had in the head office. And I was there with my full blown round stomach and I sat through every session. We had sessions that were, elongated, and we were having lunches at 3:30, etc. Never complained once, and then I even felt the need to complain because I was okay with it. But my point is, people don't view it as that. People don't understand that. People think, oh my God, she's pregnant, she's going to create a fuss about, the meeting going on longer, etc. My point is, don't assume, don't make assumptions about, what a woman might be thinking or feeling. Ask if you're concerned or if you're truly worried, ask. If there is an issue, I will speak up. If there isn't, I will not, right? It's as simple as that. The problem comes when people make assumptions because of a particular situation. And that is what is unfair.
Sayukta, now all the filmmakers have a contract.
Okay.
The married actresses, that they should not get pregnant while the film is in the making. I'm sure if they do get pregnant and they're just still 3 months, they must be informing the filmmaker. Similarly, they have a contract that the actress will not go for Botox and change her mouth and eyebrows and eyes, because they have signed her for the way she looks, and then she goes and does something to her teeth and eyes, so it looks a different person.
Problem.
Yes.
So we have to look at what we do also, all the wrong things.
So very interesting points. I think I'm going to wrap this up. This has been an amazing conversation, very different points of view. The team and I were really worried that we're getting people from such diverse backgrounds, different experiences, and just bringing them together. Will this really get the conversation going the way we did? But I think we did. I think a lot of focus on culture, empathy, positivity, and love as well, that makes such a big difference. Lot of focus on the caregiving responsibilities that women have, and it plays such a huge role in building leadership roles for women as well. To conclude, just want to hear one takeaway that you'd like to share. What is that one thing we can do for women at work? It could be one word, it could be one sentence, but what's that one thing you think will make women in leadership roles so much more in number?
Understand. I think that's just understand and accept.
Understanding and acceptance, yes.
Create enabling environments.
Create enabling environments. Inclusivity.
I think just sensitization and empathy on a whole. I think that's absolutely and super important.
And before we go away, I want to say that Sayukta Iyer, you were fantastic today. Such a good listener and such a good interviewer. I have been on so many panels for so many years for Women's Day. And there came a point where I became so bored of it that I stopped doing it. I did this after a very long time, only for you, and I don't regret it at all. I love you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you, actually, for taking time out.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Monica, Dr. Bhavna.
Thank you.